Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Ancient Epics, the place where the greatest stories of humanity come back to life. Long before stone cities rose toward the sun, before written memory hardened into ink and clay, entire civilizations of the ancient Americas were already descending into the earth, forming underground tombs so complex that many remained invisible to the modern world until only decades ago. Some were sealed with stone so precise that no blade could pass between the joints. Others were aligned with stars no longer visible in the same skies. In these silent depths, rulers, priests, and unknown dead were laid to rest, surrounded by offerings meant not for this world, but for a journey beyond it. What makes these tombs truly unsettling is not only their age, but their intent. Archaeologists have found passageways deliberately designed to confuse intruders, false doors carved into living rock, and chambers constructed where air itself seemed scarce, yet human beings labored there for years. Bone and copper, long before iron touched the continent. The darkness was intentional. The earth was not merely soil, but a sacred body believed to hold the threshold between life, death, and cosmic rebirth. Many of these tombs were never meant to be found again. Their builders expected memory to fade, yet the earth has begun to speak. Collapsed ceilings, accidental discoveries, and careful excavations have revealed a hidden world beneath the ancient Americas, one where death was not an end, but a carefully guided descent into the womb of creation itself. The story begins far earlier than empire, in a time when the land itself was believed to breathe. Across Mesoamerica and the Andean highlands, the earth was understood as a living presence. Caves were mouths. Beneath them lay the sacred underworld, known by many names and imagined not as punishment. To enter the ground was to return to origins. Urban centers on earth, its avenues stretched with mathematical precision, its pyramids aligned with celestial cycles. A man-made tunnel was carved deep into volcanic bedrock. This passage, discovered through modern scanning technology, and walls once lined with glittering mica brought from distant lands. Scholars believe this underground complex represented the path to the underworld, a place of creation rather than decay. They were positioned at the cosmic axis, where heaven, earth, and the unseen realms converged. The labor required to carve such tunnels using stone tools speaks of generations bound by belief, each strike of obsidian guided by ritual purpose. Far to the south, in the Andean world, the same descent into earth took a different form. Along the Peruvian coast and highlands, vertical shafts descended deep into the ground, opening into lateral chambers where the dead were placed in seated positions, wrapped in textiles, facing symbolic directions. Entire family lines were interred together, forming ancestral collectives beneath the soil. In regions such as Nazca and Paracas, tombs were dug into hardened desert earth where rainfall was rare, yet preservation was extraordinary. Human remains survived for millennia, preserved by arid winds and careful sealing. The dead were accompanied by ceramics depicting mythic beings, agricultural symbols, and celestial motifs. Each item spoke of a belief that death was a continuation of duty, identity, and cosmic order. Even deeper underground in the Andes, sacred caves known as huacas served as burial and ceremonial sites. The dead within them was to bind lineage to land. The mountains, or apis, were revered as ancestors themselves. Tombs cut into their bodies were acts of communion, not defiance. Northward, among the ancient Maya, underground tombs reached extraordinary levels of architectural and symbolic complexity. Beneath towering pyramids at sites such as Palenque, Copan, and Calakmul, rulers were buried in chambers accessible only through long, narrow stairways sealed after interment. These tombs were often aligned with solar events, allowing light to penetrate the depths on specific days of the year. The most famous of these, the tomb of Kainich Janab Pakel at Palenque, lay hidden beneath the Temple of the Inscriptions for over 1,000 years. When uncovered, the tomb revealed a massive stone sarcophagus carved with imagery depicting the ruler suspended between worlds, descending into the underworld while emerging as a divine ancestor. The imagery was not a depiction of death as finality. Maya underground tombs were designed as microcosms of the universe. The ceilings often represented the heavens, while the floor symbolized the earth or the waters below. Jade, considered the stone of life and maize, was placed in mouths and hands to ensure rebirth. Cinnabar dust, toxic yet symbolically powerful, coated bodies and objects, marking transformation through sacrifice. To bury the dead deeply was to return them to the source of creation. As centuries passed, forests followed cities, deserts shifted, and mountains endured. The entrances to many underground tombs vanished entirely. Others were intentionally hidden by descendants who feared disturbing the balance between worlds. When modern explorers and archaeologists finally reached these spaces, they often found them untouched, sealed by time and belief. Yet these discoveries also revealed something unsettling. Offerings were arranged in patterns only visible from above. The implication was clear. Some individuals may have entered these depths knowing they would never return. Whether these acts were symbolic, ritualistic, or sacrificial remains a matter of careful study. What is certain is that underground tombs in the ancient Americas were not mere graves. They were sacred machines of belief, designed to move souls through cosmic stages, anchored by astronomy, geography, and myth. And as the earth continues to shift and reveal what it once concealed, the silence of these tombs grows heavier, carrying echoes of a world that understood death not as disappearance, but as descent into something vast, ancient, and eternally alive. As the centuries deepened, the underground tombs of the ancient Americas became more than resting places. They evolved into sacred landscapes beneath the surface, mirroring the heavens above. The builders of these hidden worlds believed that the cosmos did not end at the horizon of the sky. It continued downward, through layers of soil and stone, into realms where time moved differently and ancestors still shaped the fate of the living. In Mesoamerican belief systems, the underworld was not a single cavern of darkness, but a complex domain with multiple levels. Among the Maya, this realm was known as Xibalba, a place of trials, rivers, and sacred houses. Tombs constructed beneath pyramids were conceived as gateways into this layered world. The descent itself was ritualized. Narrow stairways forced bodies to be lowered carefully, echoing the mythic journeys of divine heroes who once traveled the same path in sacred stories. At sites like Copan, underground tombs were carved into limestone bedrock with astonishing precision. Builders used stone chisels and wooden mallets, working by torchlight in suffocating conditions. Soot marks still cling to the ceilings, silent witnesses to years of labor performed far from the sun. The chambers were sealed with massive stone slabs, some weighing several tons, requiring advanced knowledge of leverage and balance. These feats were not displays of power alone, but acts of devotion meant to ensure harmony between worlds. Astronomy guided these constructions. The Maya were careful observers of the sky, tracking the movements of Venus, the sun, and the moon. Certain tombs were aligned so that shafts of light would penetrate the darkness during equinoxes or solstices. For a brief moment each year, sunlight touched the resting place of a ruler, symbolizing renewal and divine favor. The underworld and the heavens were thus bound together by stone and light. In the highlands of South America, the Andean civilizations expressed similar ideas through different forms. The Inca and their predecessors carved burial chambers into cliffs and mountainsides, creating underground and semi-underground tombs that merged with natural formations. These were not hidden in shame but placed where the living could see and honor them. The dead were believed to continue protecting the land, ensuring fertility, stability, and balance. Some underground tombs in the Andes were accessed through narrow tunnels that led into chambers, large enough to hold dozens of mummified ancestors. The bodies were carefully prepared, dried by cold mountain air, and wrapped in layers of finely woven textiles. Food offerings, tools, and symbolic objects were placed nearby, reflecting the belief that life continued in another form. These tombs were periodically reopened for rituals, reinforcing the bond between the living and the dead. Yet there were also tombs meant to remain sealed forever. In remote regions, deep shaft tombs descended straight into the earth, sometimes more than 20 meters below the surface. Once the final burial was completed, the shaft was filled with stones and soil, erasing all trace of the entrance. The location was entrusted only to memory and ritual, not to markers or monuments. In western Mexico, a unique tradition of underground tombs flourished centuries before the rise of large empires. Known today as shaft tombs, these burial complexes featured vertical shafts leading to one or more horizontal chambers. Entire families were interred together, surrounded by ceramic figures depicting daily life, animals, and ceremonial scenes. These objects were not decorations, but companions meant to accompany the dead into the unseen world. The effort required to excavate these tombs was immense. Hardened volcanic soil had to be broken with stone tools, basket by basket, over long periods of time. The depth of some shafts suggests a deliberate separation from the surface world. The deeper the tomb, the closer it was believed to be to the spiritual essence of the earth. Silence, darkness, and distance from daily life were essential elements of the ritual. Further north, among the ancient cultures of the American Southwest, underground spaces took on a communal and symbolic role. Kivas, circular chambers built partially or entirely below ground, served as places of ceremony and storytelling. While not tombs in the strict sense, they reflected the same worldview, that emergence from the earth was the beginning of human existence, and return to it marked a sacred cycle. Some burial sites were placed near or beneath these chambers, reinforcing the connection between ancestry and origin. In many traditions, the underworld was associated with water. Underground rivers, springs, and cenotes were considered portals between realms. Among the Maya of the Yucatan Peninsula, where surface rivers were scarce, cenotes provided both life-giving water and sacred burial sites. Human remains, offerings of jade, gold, and pottery have been found at the bottom of these natural shafts, suggesting ritual descent into watery darkness. These acts were not performed lightly. Entering such depths required courage and spiritual preparation. The individuals placed in these locations were often elites, chosen intermediaries, or sacrificial figures believed to carry messages to divine forces. The tomb, whether carved by hand or shaped by nature, became a threshold where worlds touched. Modern archaeology has revealed that many underground tombs were constructed in stages, expanding over generations. Walls were added, chambers enlarged, and passages modified as lineages grew. This continuity speaks of a long-term relationship with the dead, not as distant ancestors, but as active participants in the present. Memory was embedded in stone, and history was walked through narrow corridors beneath the ground. Despite their sophistication, these tombs were not immune to time. Earthquakes collapsed ceilings. Floods filled chambers with silt. In some regions, later cultures deliberately avoided ancient burial sites, fearing the power that lingered there. Others repurposed them, layering new beliefs atop old foundations. The underground became a palimpsest of faith, carved and recarved by human hands. When modern explorers first entered many of these spaces, they often reported a profound stillness. The air felt heavy, the silence absolute. Objects lay where they had been placed centuries earlier, untouched by light. These moments offered glimpses into a mindset that viewed death not as separation, but as transformation within a living cosmos. The underground tombs of the ancient Americas thus stand as enduring testaments to humanity's desire to understand existence beyond the visible world. They reveal societies deeply attuned to cycles of nature, movement of stars, and the sacredness of the earth itself. Each chamber, shaft, and tunnel speaks of belief carved into darkness, waiting patiently beneath the surface. And as the story descends further, deeper mysteries remain, those tied to symbols etched in stone, to journeys mapped by constellations, and to the enduring silence that still guards the ancient dead. In the deepest layers of these underground worlds, symbolism became more powerful than stone itself. Walls were not left bare. Floors were not chosen at random. Every direction, texture, and placement carried meaning shaped by centuries of inherited knowledge. The underground tombs of the ancient Americas were designed as sacred maps, guiding the soul through unseen realms long after the final breath had faded. In Maya tombs, carved glyphs and painted imagery often accompany the dead, though many have been lost to time and humidity. Where traces remain, they reveal scenes of transformation rather than mourning. Serpents, jaguars, maize plants, and celestial symbols appear again and again. These were not ornaments of fear, but signs of power, rebirth, and continuity. The jaguar, ruler of night and caves, embodied mastery of darkness. Maize symbolized life emerging from the earth, mirroring the soul's hoped-for return. The placement of bodies followed strict cosmological rules. Heads were often oriented toward specific cardinal directions, linked to colors, deities, and elements. East, associated with sunrise and renewal, held special importance. The underworld was not chaos, but order inverted, governed by laws as precise as those of the heavens above. In Andean cultures, the underground tomb was equally bound to landscape and sky. Mountains cast shadows that marked seasonal change, and tomb entrances were sometimes aligned with peaks considered ancestral beings. These apis were thought to watch over the people, and those buried within their stone were believed to join their ranks. The dead did not vanish. They ascended into the living geography. Some tombs contain no human remains at all, only offerings. These empty chambers suggest that the act of burial was sometimes symbolic rather than literal. The tomb itself became a vessel, a sacred point of exchange where prayers, sacrifices, and cosmic balance were negotiated. In this way, the underground served both memory and mystery. There are also traces of sound and movement within these spaces. Certain tunnels amplify footsteps. Some chambers resonate when struck or spoken into. While no written explanations survive, these acoustic properties were unlikely to be accidental. Sound, echoing through darkness, may have played a role in rituals meant to awaken ancestral presence or mimic the voices of the earth itself. Modern scientific analysis has revealed additional layers of meaning. Traces of minerals such as hematite, cinnabar, and mica appear repeatedly in underground tombs across the Americas. These substances shimmer in low light, transforming darkness into a subtle glow. When illuminated by torch or oil lamp, walls would have appeared alive, shifting, and breathing. The underground was not meant to feel dead. It was meant to feel eternal. The labor required to create these spaces remained staggering. Without metal tools or draft animals, ancient builders carved through rock with patience measured in lifetimes. Entire communities contributed to projects that they themselves would never use. This was faith expressed through endurance. Each strike of stone affirmed belief in a world beyond sight. Yet not all underground tombs were expressions of peace. Some contain evidence of violent death, sacrifice, or ritualized endings. These acts must be understood within their cultural context, where offering life was believed to sustain cosmic order. Even here, The intention was not cruelty, but balance. The earth received what it was owed, and in return, the world endured. Over time, many of these traditions faded or transformed. Conquest, disease, and cultural disruption silenced the knowledge needed to interpret the underground. Entrances collapsed. Meanings blurred. What remained were stones without voices, chambers without names. For centuries, these spaces slept beneath roots and dust. When rediscovered, they challenged modern assumptions about ancient societies. The complexity of their engineering rivaled that of the Old World. Their cosmologies were sophisticated, woven from astronomy, ecology, and philosophy. The underground tombs proved that the ancient Americas possessed deep traditions of metaphysical thought, grounded not in abstraction, but in lived experience with land and sky. Today, archaeologists approach these sites with increasing humility. Many remain sealed out of respect for descendant communities. Others are studied carefully, documented, and protected. Each discovery adds another fragment to a story still unfolding, one that refuses to remain buried. What endures above all is the shared human impulse revealed in these depths. Across forests, deserts, and mountains, ancient peoples chose to meet death not with distance, but with closeness to the earth. They carved pathways into darkness not to escape life, but to understand it more fully. The tomb was not an ending, but a passage. Shaped by belief that existence flowed in cycles too vast to see from the surface alone. The underground tombs of the ancient Americas remind the world that history does not only rise in monuments and towers. It also descends quietly, patiently, into stone. Beneath every step lies a hidden archive of faith, labor, and hope. The earth remembers what humanity entrusts to it. And in the stillness of those chambers, where light barely reaches and time slows to a whisper, the ancient story continues, waiting for those who listen with care rather than haste. If these ancient voices touched your heart today, please consider subscribing to Ancient Epics and ringing the bell so you never miss the next forgotten tale. Thanks for watching.